let's go back to the Jokic Shaq thing because I'm all the way on board with you that that's blasphemy. I think that Shaq is the dominant conversation is just retarded. That's even more blasphemous.
More
Uh,
skilled. He's more skilled for sure. Like Jokic is more skilled, but he's
so
not
so
better overall. He's
so
not a better
so
player.
Shaq is way better. Shaq would destroy Jokic. But my thing with you, I didn't get why you didn't understand my point. Is I was saying, but on the offensive end though, Jokic would torch him though.
I don't think he would torch him.
Come on, bro.
I don't think he.
Well,
So my point was this. Okay. Let's say Jokic does torch. You're saying torch, meaning he will pretty much have his way.
yeah, he'll get 30.
So Shaq being a defense, you just said Shaq was a dominant on both ends. So his dominance on defense would not impact Jokic at all.
Can I break that down?
Yeah.
Okay, so number one, like remember, I'm still saying Shaq would outplay him. I said that from the jump. So I'm not saying that Jokic would outplay Shaq or be better than Shaq in the matchup and in the series or whatever. I'm saying that Jokic will put up numbers on the offensive end, and this is why. Like I said before, Shaq always had. This was known that Shaq always had problems with centers that could step out and face up. And at that time, that was only dealing with stepping out and facing up to the mid range, not even the 3-point line. So now you're talking about a guy who can step out to the 3-point line and is shooting 47% from the three in these playoffs. And you're saying, well, he's only going to shoot 4 and make 2 per game. And I'm saying,
you've never seen Jokic dominate a game with his outside shooting.
hold on. So I'm not saying, what I'm saying is it doesn't have to do with how many threes he's going to make in the game. The point is that Shaq has to be that far out. And when you have to guard a guy that's far out and you have slow lateral movement, you have little to no chance. And
What I'm
that's
saying
my Shaq.
is, Shaq, what he used to do. When I remember, I was a very consistent and diehard Laker fan. So
Same here.
I remember watching these games, and what
Same here.
Shaq would do with those guys, he would just give them the shot. Like honestly, if I'm playing against the Nuggets, I know that the majority of Jokic's points are going to happen somewhere inside that free throw line in the paint. I would let Jokic shoot. If Jokic wanted to shoot 14 threes, give him 14 threes.
That's not
He's
how
not going to make 47% of 14 threes.
that's not how it works. Okay. Number one, when you say Shaq used to let you was an avid Laker fan and Shaq used to let those guys shoot. Like we said during his Laker run, there were those centers weren't there anymore. So he had to deal with the guys we're talking about, Hakeem, Pat Ewing, and Robinson earlier in his career, and those guys used to put up numbers on him because of this very reason.
I feel you, but I'm basing it off of Shaq when he was winning, when he was defensive on all defensive teams.
Yeah, but he didn't have to deal with
he wasn't
that.
that type of player early in his career.
But he didn't have to deal. Darius, he didn't have to deal. He didn't have to guard those guys in that period. So we didn't get to see that.
So one can argue that Jokic right now is a even worse defensive player, and his offense is overrated because he's not going against any caliber defensive centers.
Okay, but
by your logic that you just gave, I can use that and it can hurt Jokic as far as how he's being marveled by how he's dominating offensively, but he's not going against a Pat Ewing, he's not going against a Hakeem, a David Robinson, a Tim Duncan, or a Shaq, or one of these great defensive centers.
I agree. I agree that it would be harder for him to dominate on the interior against those guys for sure. But what I'm saying is
only averaging 24 a game. So
hold on.
Those guys, would he even average 20?
Hold on. If Shaq had an issue with Hakeem and Pat and Robinson when he was his most agile, then in the 2000s, it would have been even harder. It wouldn't have been easier.
No, that's not true because defense isn't being a great defensive player isn't predicated upon just being agile. Like
It
you
has a lot to do with it. Your lateral movement,
defensive
especially for a big man.
IQ, defensive IQ, understanding defensive scheme, toughness, mentality, the will is the biggest part of defense. There's a lot of guys that, and there are a lot of big men that were big, great defensive players that wasn't super agile.
None of that matters if you have slow lateral movement against a guy who can step out and handle the ball.
So
None of that matters.
How was Shaq winning? How was he a defensive player of the year and dominating defensively?
Because what Shaq was great at is
he wasn't as slow as you making it. He wasn't fucking Ilgaskis slow. You trying to make it seem like he was that damn
he wasn't that slow, but he had trouble. That's why he was getting torched by them dudes, bro. Like this was a conversation.
Hold on, time out. Nobody was torching Shaq. If a guy scores 18 points and makes a couple of 3 or 4 or 5 outside jump shot, he's not
18. Yeah.
They was putting up. No, you acting like Sabonis was scoring 30, 40 points. Who was scoring 30 or 40 against Shaq?
Pat Ewing, David Robinson, and Hakeem Olajuwon.
I mean, Hakeem, Hakeem, but Hakeem is arguably the greatest.
David Robinson, and Pat Ewing.
Hakeem is, I'm not even gonna say arguably. Hakeem is the greatest up until that point, the greatest offensive scorer that we ever seen as far as having a bag. He has the deepest bag, pause, period.
Okay, and David Robinson and Patrick Ewing.
Also, one of the top 10 greatest players, centers ever.
Okay, so the problem was that the reason why he had problems with them is because they could step out and face up. But if it's a guy that's just like a back to the basket guy, then you're not really gonna do anything with Shaq.
I feel you, but I think you're putting too much on it because if you take T-Mac and Kobe, right, and you put them up against each other, each person is gonna torch the other offensively. Like nobody's gonna get locked up. You know what I'm saying? Because you got two of the greatest offensive threats ever. So it's the same thing with Hakeem and Shaq, and it's the same thing with Pat Ewing and Shaq, and it's the same thing with David Robinson and Shaq. No one's gonna just lock the other person up.
But like
the thing is, when it comes to Jokic, he's not going up against anybody like that.
Patrick Ewing isn't seen as like an all-time great offensive big man.
Pat Ewing's best offensive season, he averaged 28.6.
Okay, but I'm saying like
if Embiid just averaged 33 and it was the best offensive season scoring output since Bob McAdoo in the 70s, and that hadn't been done in 48 years, then scoring 28.6 is one of the better seasons that you can have offensively. Shaq's best average was 29, and he won scoring titles both of those years, and he was considered that's only 1 point off of that. So how is that not considered a elite scorer?
What you're not looking at is, in your head, it's like, oh, just let him shoot threes. But
absolutely,
it's not that simple because of this.
It is that simple. That's what they did to Bron.
Can I explain it?
Shoot threes, pack the paint, take away the paint, because that's where he can beat us, and let him shoot the outside shot.
Can I explain it?
Yeah.
So the reason why it's not that simple is because it's not like you can just sit in the paint. You still have to step out at least to the mid-range area, right?
But it's easier to cover ground from the free throw line and back rather than the 3-point line.
If you sitting at the free throw line and he's at the 3-point line, then he can step in and shoot a mid-range jump shot.
You said what? Say it again.
if you're backing up all the way to the free throw line and he's at the 3-point line, then he can step in. Number one, there's two things. So is that what you want to, is that what you, where you would have Shaq be at? Is that the free throw line? Because this is what I'm about to break down.
I would have him in the paint to the free throw line. Yeah, I think that.
If you definitely can't have him in
This
the
is what I'm
paint,
saying. This is
you
what I'm saying.
definitely can't have him in the paint.
If he was in the paint or at the free throw line, and Jokic would score some points. But what I'm saying is, defensively, Shaq was dominant.
Hold on.
Especially in the playoffs.
I'm trying to get
he
to
would
a point.
have, he would
I'm
have
trying to
more
get to a point.
impact.
I'm trying to get to a point. I'm asking you a question. Would you have Shaq
I was
at the?
answering your question.
But no, you went on it with some other stuff. I just want to know: would you have Shaq at the free throw line? Is that where you would have him?
Nobody can just stand in one place defensively. He's going to be moving.
I'm saying, I'm trying to get an idea. Okay, if you was Shaq,
that's not how defense works. You're not just going to stand at the free throw line.
What? If you was Shaq, give me an idea of how far you would be away from Jokic on defense.
I would give him anything outside, anything from about 16 foot beyond. I would give him that.
That's not. Where would you be standing? Give me an idea of where you would be standing as Shaq. In the paint. In the paint.
Anywhere from 16, anywhere from around the free throw line, right? Is a free throw line is a what? A 15-foot jump shot? A 15-foot shot?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's around that.
That's why I'm asking you to tell me free throw line or in the paint.
He's gonna be both in the paint and at the free throw line.
Okay. If you're in the paint, then that's just like retarded because
it's gonna be in the, obviously Jokic is all right. So what you're presenting though, it kind of doesn't make sense because Jokic is not gonna stand out at the perimeter all game because he's not gonna be as an effective player that he can be if he's not operating in the paint.
Of course, he's not gonna stand at 3-point line all game, but he stands out there a lot though.
Okay, well let him stand out there.
Okay. So going back to my point I'm trying to get to is if as Shaq, you're going to stay in the paint and he's at the 3-point line, then what you're doing is you're actually giving up a mid-range jumper because all Jokic has to do is step in a little bit and now he has a wide open mid-range jumper.
Take that. Shoot mid-range jumpers all game. Shoot all jump shots. You're not going to beat us.
If you do that, Jokic is gonna torch you. If you're giving him wide open, listen.
You've never seen Jokic just knock down mid-range jump shot after like 10 to 12.
You know why? You know why? Because nobody's dumb enough to give him that.
Yes, man, bro. How many times do you see Jokic standing, making passes at the top of the key with little pressure on him? All the time, every game.
When he shoots it, it's a wet ball.
Not every, bro, come on now. I mean, obviously not every time, but I'm saying he's not beating. First off, team's game plan is to not let him score, but to make him a scorer. So obviously he gets, is it Eric, true or false? Does Jokic get the majority of his buckets in the paint or out of the paint?
In the paint.
Exactly. So he does most of his damage offensively in the paint. No time at any point in any game in his career has he torched any team by shooting jump shots all game.
But the problem is the reason why he gets in the paint is because when he starts hitting them from outside, you got to come out a little bit and then he drives.
So all I'm saying is I hope nobody would, if you give him the jump shot, it greatly benefits your defensive scheme. If you take away the other guys, you make him a scorer, which is when teams have had success against him, when he scores. You make him a scorer and you take away the paint and just make him a jump shooter, you will live with him making, you know how they say a defensive scheme, a great defensive scheme. When they used to play Kobe, they knew that Kobe was going to score. But the defensive game plan against Kobe was you make him take contested jump shots, or you make him take jump shots in general to beat you. Don't let him get to the free throw line, and don't let him get to the paint. And that's usually not just a Kobe thing. That's just a great player thing. They're gonna get their numbers. But if you make them take jump shots compared to getting to the rim and getting easy buckets and free throws, that's another thing I don't like about Jokic's game. He doesn't get to the free throw line. He averaged 6 free throws per game
Okay.
in the season, which is not a lot. Which Embiid averaged 10 makes. 10 makes. We're not even talking about attempts. 10 makes a game.
Listen, bro.
And he's making them at an 86%.
There's a reason.
Hold on, let me finish my point. So my overall point, my closing statement on that point is you live with guys taking jump shots. That's fine. If you're gonna beat me making 15 to 20 or more jump shots a game, then hey, you were better than me. But he's not gonna do that most times now.
Okay. There's a reason why guys don't just sit in the paint against him. Number one, like I said, once he starts making a few from the out, from the mid-range, three-pointer, whatever, you got to step out a little bit. Number two,
you don't have to.
If you stay in the free throw line area or a little bit below, you're at a disadvantage because when a guy is at the 3-point line and you're backing up way back there, you got a disadvantage because they have room to pick up momentum. It's actually easier to drive. You're backing up.
Jokic is 285. Shaq was 330, 340. You're not. I don't care what momentum. You're not moving Shaq. Shaq is gonna block your shit.
No. You're not gonna move him. But what's gonna happen is it's easy to go by a person when you're starting at the 3-point line and they're at the free throw line. It's like super easy. And then what happens then is the defense breakdown is, makes it easier to penetrate and kick. You got guys driving. That's number one. Number two, pick and roll. If Jamal Murray is going pick and roll with Jokic, you don't think Shaq, if Shaq don't step up, Jamal Murray wide open.
Yeah. I think that's the only way they would be hurt. And to that point, you do have a point. Overall, my overall point is this. Shaq was a dominating force defensively. If there is a couple areas where Jokic's strengths offensively can hurt Shaq. I'm not saying that Shaq can't be hurt defensively, but what I am saying is Shaq's ability to impact the game defensively gives him a greater chance to not be torched than if you flip it around. Jokic doesn't have any advantage. Jokic is just going to get the true definition of torched. Mm-hmm. And my point I was making previously is that the biggest you're bringing up all this in different ways that Shaq is going to be effective defensively. But the thing is, Shaq's offense is his best defense because he wears you down. You don't want to, by the time the end of the game comes, you don't even want to bang with Shaq no more because you're getting elbowed, you're getting hit in the stomach, bro. Physically, you're being destroyed. Not only are you being destroyed and you're being taken out of the game psychologically because of how physical it is, but you also piling up fouls. The hardest thing to do was to stay out of foul trouble guarding Shaq. So the way that Shaq plays offense is his greatest defense as well because it completely takes you out of the game. Psychologically.
I agree with that. I definitely don't agree with you saying Jokic doesn't have an advantage. Jokic has an advantage on offense.
No, I didn't say Jokic doesn't have an advantage at all. I just said that what I originally said was Shaq dominates the game offensively and defensively, and he has a much better chance because of his defensive dominance. Does that mean that he won't have moments where Jokic is going to get his? Of course. But I think that he's not going to get torched, like you're saying.
I think he would because when I mentioned the pick and roll, like that has a lot to do with why Patrick, Hakeem, and them was doing what they were. It's not just stepping out and then you back up and then you make him shoot. Like
But
basketball is
I think that's where he would have problems, like obviously defending the pick and roll and stuff like that.
it's both. When
I'm
you
saying in the,
combine,
I'm
bro,
saying
bro.
if you throw Jokic, it's what I'm saying. If you throw, all right, so let's give him all that, right? Outside shots and pick and roll. But we just said Jokic does the majority of his damage in the post and down low. So what I'm
Yes, but
saying
if
in
you're
those,
coming
and
out, if you're
hold
stepping
on, hold
out
on,
in the
hold
pick
on,
and
hold on,
roll,
hold on. I'm saying if he gets the majority of his buckets down low and in the post, that's where Shaq has his biggest advantage and where he's going to have stifle him a lot more times than he would compare it to the other situations, pick and roll and jump shots.
but Darius, if he's going pick and roll and Shaq got to step out on that pick and roll, you don't think he's gonna get in the paint? You don't think
Sure,
he gonna, you don't think he's
if
gonna
he
get
comes
you
off
don't
of
think
the,
he's gonna get in it? You don't think
all right, so I'm saying that's where he'll have his advantages, pick and roll related or jump shots. I'm saying if they throw the ball into Jokic and it's a one-on-one post down backup situation, Shaq is gonna win a lot of those
duh,
battles. So
duh.
that's
But do you think
all right. So hold on.
you
That's
think
why
Denver would
he's
be
not
dumb enough
going
to
to.
do that?
So what is he gonna? Is Jokic gonna do pick and roll every single play the entire time,
No,
or is he
not
gonna
every.
mix up his game and
Well,
go down low?
first of all, number one, you know that pick and roll is the majority of the NBA today.
Well, we just said that Jokic gets the majority of his buckets down low, out of a pick and roll situation.
You said out of a pick and roll situation?
Yes.
Exactly. So if he goes pick and roll, Shaq gonna have to step
No, no,
out.
no, no, no. You said that he gets the majority of his buckets, not in a pick and roll, down low, one-on-one.
I didn't say that it was.
As I've been watching Jokic, he gets at least half of his buckets when they just throw it to him, or he catches it face up and then he does a couple moves and he makes like a little weird quirky shot off of a pivot or a counter move or something like that, and then it's not in pick and roll.
I didn't agree that the majority of it was not in the pick and roll. What I would say is that I can agree with you that if you want to say half off of post up and facing up, but then there's the other half where it's outside jumpers and pick and roll and getting in the lane and doing that little floater that he does, which is like lethal.
Yeah, I think that's where he would get the bulk of his points. But my point, once again, I'm not saying Jokic wouldn't score. I'm not saying Jokic wouldn't have advantages. I just think that if half of your buckets come off of where Shaq's strength would actually dominate you, then you're not going to get torched like you're making it seem. It's going to
You are
be
you are because as your game plan, what you would just do is you would make Jokic go pick and roll and be on the outside a little bit more.
so. And like I said, his game will be affected because he would be in foul trouble and he would be demoralized psychologically. And he would not want no physical match with Shaq.
Right, but the other thing though is that yeah, he's gonna have to bang with him on a defensive end, but then when he come on the offensive end, because Shaq is at a disadvantage with bringing him out, Jokic is gonna be playing more of a finesse game
Bro,
on the
what's so
offensive
crazy
game.
is what's so crazy about what you're saying is I seen against the Lakers, right? They put Rui Hachimura one-on-one with Jokic. They weren't doing none of that screen and roll stuff that you're talking about. He wasn't dominating the game from outside. They were putting Rui Hachimura on him, and they were doubling off of whoever Aaron Gordon for the whole series with Anthony Davis, and he was struggling against that defense.
But then
Struggling
you
mightily
just
against
said
that
they were
defense.
doubling him.
Right. So there are going to be times where Shaq gets doubled, and there's going to be times where Jokic gets doubled too. What I'm saying is, if he struggled against that, then Shaq is going to definitely have games where he's dominating him. He's not
If you're
getting
getting double, of course you're not gonna.
and one-on-one, because there was times where Rui Hachimura was stopping him one-on-one.
And Hachimura is very agile.
Bro, it wasn't him. He wasn't stopping him because he was beating him to a spot or he was using his agility. But Rui said, and Rui said this out of his own mouth, he was putting his knee into the back of his legs to where he couldn't back him down. He was finding a way to use leverage to where Jokic wasn't able to back him down. That's what the advantage that Rui had against Jokic, out of Rui's own mouth. And from my eyes watching him. So what I'm saying is you're underestimating the fact that Jokic is not really he's really a finesse player.
Right.
So
he thrives off of how well he moves.
Right. And you're
and that's Shaq's disadvantage on defense.
This is what I'm trying to understand here. Like I've even heard you say that Shaq is extremely agile and his agility was underrated.
I broke it down last night. I said he was agile in the open court and in the post. But as far as lateral movement on the perimeter, horrible.
Okay, but we're talking about Rui guarding Jokic in the post. And I said he was shutting Jokic down. And you said it's because he was agile.
Yeah, because I said Jokic thrives off of how well he moves for a big man.
But he was in the post. And so you said Shaq on the perimeter, and I agree with that. But in the post, he was agile enough to cover Jokic.
Right, but against Rui
and have a major advantage defensively.
Against Rui or big man right now that Jokic is playing against, even if he's in the post, he's going to be doing a lot of facing up, a lot of footwork stuff, a lot of movement. So if a guy
I think Shaq can guard that. I've seen Shaq guard that, guarding Tim Duncan and other players.
In the post he can, but not in the perimeter.
Right, but he plays a lot of his game in the post. He's not a perimeter player.
But I was saying if he went against Shaq, he would not be in the post like that.
So then he would take away from his scoring advantage. He's not going to beat you. He's not going to dominate the game offensively. He's not going to score 30, 40 points doing that.
I just broke it down. I just broke it down.
He's not going to do that. He's not going to score. Where he's going to dominate the game out there is with his passing ability and his screen and roll game, getting guys shots. He's not going to dominate scoring.
Listen, when you combine him, the outside shots, and then when you throw in the pick and roll,
he's not going to score 40 doing that, bro.
Why not? Look,
because he hasn't done it. He's never done it.
Listen. Yeah, but there's no guys like
hypothetical, bro. You're saying, well, he can possibly do it. He's never done that. He's never dominated.
He never scored 40?
He's never scored 40, 50 points. He never had big scoring outputs only playing on the perimeter.
Listen.
That's never happened. You've never seen Jokic do that.
Listen, if Shaq has to step out on the pick and roll, which he does, he's going to have to step out on the pick and roll. Then Jokic is going to get in the paint. That's why I keep trying to explain.
Bro, you're saying like there's only one outcome to him playing. Like there's a way that you can defensively play the pick and roll that keeps Shaq on Jokic. There's a way you can play that.
Okay, so the only way you can play that is if you make the guy go under on the screen, which nobody's going to do that against Jamal Murray.
Yeah, well, all I'm saying is,
so Shaq's going to step out.
I do not think, and we can't prove it, and I feel like I'm making my point, you're making your point, we're not backing down on a point, so we're not going to agree. There's really no way to prove it. You know what I'm saying? My overall key, I'm just going to close it here, that I don't think Shaq's going to get torched. And it's not going to be, and like I said,